welcome to this program, IDentities Umhlobo, the TV show program that talks about your social, economic, and political issues. In our country, as we are counting down to the 30th of July, a day that is so amazing to our country, that is a watershed day. A lot happening around preparation for the elections. There's been a lot of demands from different sectors in our country, from the political parties, from individuals calling for different things. We've in the past been hearing a lot around the printing of the ballot box. At the same time, on this show, we've also addressed issues of electoral reforms. We've also addressed issues of violence. But we've in the recent times as well seen that there's been an upheaving or an increase of emanating videos that are indicating otherwise, that there's a lot of violence that is happening in our communities. We need to talk about this. We need to continue the discussion, and to speak about this today, again, thanks to ZESN, who have actually been so gracious to sponsor this show. I'm joined in the studio by two amazing gentlemen. I must say that we're expecting a lady who did not pitch up last minute. But I'm joined by gentlemen today, by Felix, a dear friend that I've gotten to know through this work, and I have Ostalos, who is also an amazing champion around the issues, but they are all citizens who are just active citizens in their communities. Gentlemen, welcome to our show.
Thank you.
All right, I want to start with you, Ostalos. There's been a lot of demands around the ballot paper printing. A lot of talk. What does ballot printing mean to a citizen like Ostalos?
Thank you very much. I think to me the ballot paper is a very important issue around elections.
Right.
Especially at this moment in time when Zimbabwe has introduced a biometric voting system, and you and me can remember what happened with the biometric in Kenya and Zambia, and where
maybe let us know what happened.
I think the major areas of contestation is that wherever the ballot, the biometric voting system has been introduced, has been problematic.
Okay.
And the area of contestation in that place has been either the voters roll or the ballot paper.
Right.
So I think that as Zimbabweans, it's very important for an individual like myself or any other ordinary citizens to know, the process around the printing of the ballot. Most importantly, because in the ballot paper is where somebody can know that, okay, how do I know that my vote is going to be secure, is going to be the one that I vote? Because if you remember, that a few years ago, the United Nations condemned elections wherein, people had casted their vote and then votes disappeared.
Okay.
So for me, it's an important issue around the printing of the ballot, but beyond that, also the traceability of the paper.
Right.
Where is it being printed? Who's printing? What's the specimen?
But that information has been made public. We know who's printing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The issue of it being printed at Fidelity printers is one thing, which is good for me, I think. But the most important one is then to know, the quantity, special stakeholders. I might not be the one going there, but I think major stakeholders like political institutions to be able to see. And the most important, if you remember in the Constitution in 2013, one of our major contributions as young people, I was a student then, was the transparency nature of activities of Zimbabwe Electoral Commission.
Right.
And for me, when you are able to see where the ballot paper is being printed and the quantity, but most important, where is it being stored, and how does it then move from one printing center at Fidelity to different stations across the country. So I think that's the most important thing. But political institutions, I think it's important for them to know these processes, so that.
But even as citizens,
of course, because my presumption is that political parties, in their plethoralness, from number 1 to number 23, the presidential candidate, they represent different people in this country. So if they know, because it's important, especially in this election, because this election is for me about trust. How do you restore trust and confidence in the nation? So if everyone says, this is how it was done, me and you are confident that, things were done properly, and then we were able to embrace, whoever, emerges victorious in the end.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you, Stalos. Felix, your take on that?
Yes, the ballot paper, it's a very important component of this election.
Right.
Remember, we are coming from, I think, a series of 3-2 or contested elections, and the issue has been around the ballot paper.
Right.
The quantities, as Stalos has said. We need to know how many were printed, how many are going to be used in the elections, what's going to happen to those which are extra, and where are they stored in the meantime between now and the actual voting date, and the logistics of moving them to the various polling stations across the country.
Right.
All the political parties need to be aware of all that information, as well as the quality of the paper used. 2013, there were accusations of a certain type of ballot paper which had some chromatography components, etc., where there were accusations that ink would move from a certain checkbox to another checkbox. So I think to clear all those...
That is weird.
That is weird. People can come up with very weird stories around the ballot paper. So, as weird as they are, there are people who are bound to believe them, especially after losing. So we want transparency in terms of the nature of the paper being used, and if there are any tests to be done to convince all the political players that this is the proper ballot paper, it is no such chromatograph or chemistry effects. I think that is very important. So issues around the ballot paper, we don't want another contested election. I think everyone is tired of politics. We want elections, then the politicians take a back door. After that, the losers, the winners, then it's business now. We want the country to move forward. So we want to clear all issues. I think as citizens, it's very important that the politicians afford us, as well as ZEC and the electoral observers teams. It's very important that they provide us with an election that is not contested this time, please.
That is amazing from the gentleman, and I think the talk really is around the transparency. We don't want to go through another grueling time again to say beyond 30 July there are questions asked for people to continue again with this, the anxiety that elections are creating. Do not go away, stay with us. We're coming after the break. Welcome to your program Identities Umhlobo, your program that talks about your social, economic and political issues. And today we're talking about the ballot, the violence, and what us as citizens think about all that's happening. And before we went on break, Carlos, you had already started talking about the issues of the ballot paper printing and the issues around transparency and everything. And I'm just thinking as a citizen, okay, so you guys, I think there were political parties that demanded to go and view the ballot paper printing, and they were asked to, they went ahead and they did. And you also spoke about the transparency of storage. Do you feel like if we do not trust processes, or if we do not have trust, do we think there can ever be an absolute fulfillment to say wherever it's stored, we are comfortable, who is responsible for its security and all this, or we need to trust that ZEC is doing its work?
I think it's a very difficult thing with respect to the chairperson of ZEC, Justice Chigumba, to trust the institution that she leads, given the background of the institution, not the person and the current status in ZEC, but the history associated with the ZEC and elections. Because previously we had conflation of that institution with the state and a certain political party. So the most important thing this time, as I've said before, is how ZEC becomes independent. In perception, I must, as an ordinary citizen, see that I trust ZEC because they've said that they're going to open the process to citizens. And there's a degree. I don't think that ZEC must open and compromise its security.
Yeah.
But there must be.
Because I was actually going to come and say, to what extent do we cause our demands? Because I think if I go back to the Constitution, ZEC has got it's the autonomy to be the body that governs elections. Independent of, us demanding or political parties demanding to see processes, because according to this constitution, ZEC is mandated to be the one that governs that
the
part.
same constitution mandates the ZEC to do so transparently. You get my point?
Right.
It must do so in the spirit of transparency and accountability. So accounting is accounting to us as the major
stakeholders. Yeah. But accountability comes with responsibility. So when we want to practice our own rights, we shouldn't tremble on other people's rights.
I don't think it's too much to demand that people must observe. Even if you go across in South Africa, political parties observe, even from a distance, provide windows, infrastructure, thanks to technology.
But people were invited to see from the windows.
One. But two, the traceability of the paper. I must be sure that this is the quantity that was printed and then it's stored. So I don't need to go inside because we have security bodies.
And that has been happening, right, in our country?
That is what must happen.
That happened last week. Political parties went and they saw through the screen.
But political parties right now, they are not aware of the quantity, the quality of the paper. I'll give you an example, because those also goes in hand with the pen that is going to be used. Go to social media right now, people are sending messages that go to the polling station. I want to send this message again. Citizens must go with their ever sharp pens. Why? Because in international standards, the pen that is used to tick on the ballot must be tested randomly. There should be random testing of the pens in terms of the degree of sulfuric acid that is in that ink. So for me, it's very important, these issues. Why? Because if these things are not met, if people don't know how we're going to move ballot papers from the storage to different provincial command centers and constituency command centers, then there's going to be a problem. And these are the areas of contestation that political parties and different players use across the world. Just recently in Kenya, the contestation around the election was in the fact that political parties were not aware of the quantity of papers and where they were being stored and how.
So citizenry and political parties are demanding to know the quantity of paper. It's important for us to know what was printed vis-a-vis the registered voters, as well as the outcome that would then.
If you remember, in 2013, there were areas where people would argue that there are so many voters than those that are registered in the place and so forth. They were ballot stuffing. So you only avoid this when you match observers and agents of political parties. These are the ballot paper that we received, 1,500 for polling station A. And these are how many people that voted, 800. So you use simple mathematics to calculate the numbers and then you are done. So you demystify the areas of contestation by being transparent. And at the same time not compromising your responsibility as Zimbabwe Electoral Commission.
I think that has been an amazing area of contestation amongst the contestation. So there's a contestation within the contestation. Political parties and political parties, like Ostalo says, representing the 23 of them, representing the citizenry, are contesting that. We need more transparency. But to what extent are our demands not trembling onto the rights of ZEC according to the Constitution, Felix?
Well, it's very important that the independence of ZEC is preserved in these matters. With the dozens of political parties as we have, it's bound to happen. There will be one or two who are not probably happy with issues A, B, C, D. But what's important is if we are to be honest with this, I think they've been bending backwards so many times. Regards, for example, the issue of observing the printing of ballot papers, it's not even covered in the Electoral Act. But they tried to accommodate the political players, with, of course, the intention of being seen to be transparent. But if that's not good enough, well, I think someone might even end up saying, no, ZEC is even breaking the law. So we have to be careful. I think our parties have to be careful in demanding free and fair elections and transparent conduct from ZEC. They should also try to protect ZEC. It's an independent body mandated to carry out the processes of managing the elections of this country, and that independence should not be infringed upon by political players, more so with issues regards the Electoral Act. These parties and individuals and politicians, they had 5 years between 2013 and the present moment to amend the Electoral Act if they were not happy with certain provisions. But it seemed for a reason, A, B, C, D, or whatever, they were not able to do so. So I think it's now unfair to try and railroad ZEC into breaking that.
But we want to come back quickly to what Ostalos raised earlier on, to say that we've had electoral contestations since time immemorial in this country, and in places where citizens or political parties have felt ZEC was compromised. And therefore, maybe would it not be justified if therefore the same people who felt aggrieved to demand more from ZEC, to demand more bending from ZEC itself?
Well, it is fair, but it has to be within the confines of the Electoral Act. If, for example, ZEC is to break the law to satisfy 2 parties or 3 of them, or even 6, there is bound to be the other parties, the other side, who feel aggrieved that maybe ZEC has done way beyond what it should do. So that will, keep us in a cycle of fights and fights. But I think if the Electoral Act is there and is in place, I think the parties should tick the boxes and say, has this issue been done, has this issue been done, rather than trying to force ZEC to go against it. I think that's very important, because we don't want also other parties complaining that ZEC is giving too much leeway to 1 or 2 political parties.
Thank you very much, Felix, there telling us what it might mean if ZEC continues bending forward, and Ostalos telling us that ZEC it is necessary for ZEC to continuously bend because there are trust issues that have happened in the past. Citizens, we are coming back after the break, and we're going to really get into what it means for us as citizens. This has been more of political parties, but when we get back from the break, we want to talk about what it means for us as citizens. Stay with us on Identities. Welcome back, viewers, to your program Identities Umhlobo. Today we're talking about the ballot paper printing and how we feel about that as citizens. Are we participating? Do we know what's going on? And today I also have 2 gentlemen, Felix and Ostalos. They are citizens, but they obviously belong to certain political parties of their choice. And by the way, we're supposed to be joined by one amazing woman, but she couldn't come at the last minute. In case you're asking why there's no woman on this team today. Felix, before we went away on break, you were saying that sometimes if we continue demanding from ZEC, asking ZEC to continue bending, it may also end up trembling on other people's rights. The question, though, that I then have for you is, what can citizenry do as we move forward to participate in all these issues?
I think as citizens, what we need to do is to keep ourselves informed of the activities of the political parties which we support and those which we don't. We have the right to follow through the activities,
right,
and also the activities of ZEC and the observers, and keep to the requirements of the law. We should also avoid issues of violence and report any such cases to the police. Then also prepare ourselves for voting day and do so peacefully. We do not want another contested election. So I think it's the responsibility of citizens to help their political party leaders to manage issues of violence.
Ostalos, you heard what Felix said earlier on about sometimes our demands may be encroaching into the rights or the obligations of ZEC. But how do we strike that balance where our calls for reforms are reasonable and are not encroaching into the rights of ZEC?
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's important for citizens to assist ZEC to account.
Right.
It's for the good of ZEC and the entire country, because ZEC at times the assumption is that it operates from certain commands, and instructions from someone. So the only thing that ZEC can do away with that is to try and deal with its transparency nature in operation. So, for example, activities, I think role of citizens must include calling ZEC to account, because ZEC must bend especially to the will of the people that is constitutional and that is within the confines of the Electoral Act. I don't think that the demands so far are outside the confines of the law, as he proposed. I think the demands are within the confines of what is there. There is no need to amend the Electoral Act. There is a need to respect that which is on the Act. ZEC must act transparency, must act professionally and independent. So at times ZEC might be finding it difficult because of certain commands. So somebody must help ZEC to be accountable. So as citizens, I think it's very important. I hear political parties, different of them, and other organizations will be marching on Wednesday. Those are activities to try and help ZEC to be accountable, not to demean or to downtrodden the role of ZEC, but to make it account and make sure that ZEC acts within the confines of its constitutional mandate.
I hear that, but also there was the mention that some of the demands are not necessarily according to the Constitution. When we go back to the Constitution, it is the mandate of ZEC that we, the citizens, or we, as political parties also, must trust ZEC to do its job. But I also respect what you're saying, that yes, it's the role of the citizens to help ZEC to account, because I think it's also our democratic right as citizens to hold leadership account. But I also want to jump in the interest of time. We've been seeing a lot of violence, and this has been across political parties, and I've personally been a victim of online violence, and from across political parties, especially a lot from the opposition, because I think there's been a lot of polarization. Now, what are you young people doing to make sure that you are not violent and we end violence?
Okay, I don't think it should be a lot from the opposition if you have violence.
Online, that is.
Yes, I think the challenge in Zimbabwe is that Zimbabwe has never known peace for a good 10 years. Since 1965, during the Electoral Declaration of Independence, you have a series of violence, an alphabet of violent activities across the country since then, 2008, 2013, and so forth. So I feel that violence is cultural.
Right.
So we need to work with doing away with the culture of violence. Number two, this election must be, to me, about the restoration of the social contract.
Right.
The economic crisis in Zimbabwe is a byproduct of trust. Trust that comes from contested elections that are violent in their nature.
Right.
So I believe that this election must restore trust in Zimbabwean citizens. I saw just a few days ago some people being beaten up by soldiers sent run away from a rally. The reasons, I don't know. But I feel that such activities must not happen, so that we ensure that our processes are free, fair, and credible, and citizens are not victimized in the process. I must go to a rally willy-nilly. I should not be forced to go to a rally. I should not be forced to stay in a rally.
Including school kids as well.
Yes, I should.
Across political parties,
Yes.
From main political parties, they are all having kids in elections.
It's very wrong. I know that
rallies.
One of the main parties contesting, I think, of course, some people don't have numbers on their side, but it's important not to, take school kids, close schools, close misigas. People must do so freely, because these are evident, issues that can be used to contest an outcome of an election. So it's important to ensure that.
But it is important also for me to mention this, that the issue of children at political rallies has been seen across main political parties, not just one. We have seen this across main political parties.
I don't think that's true, but that's your position.
I've seen
yes,
I think we'll be very happy to actually,
Yeah.
if we can. But in
important.
ending, briefly, Felix.
We've seen incidents of violence against women politicians. And on this issue of children, the High Court has since made a ruling that the school children should be barred from attending rallies. So I think we are going to have the political parties respecting the High Court as well as the Constitution.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, Felix and Ostalos, for making time to be with us and to share your sentiments and as citizens in this country and also as active political citizens in our country. Citizens, it's this time again where we read your messages and your feedback. I'm going to read the first message that says, Hi, Nyari, program yenyu iri kutisimudzira, kasi avo vezek avasi kupindura mibvunzo. Zita rangu ndi John Kwamurewa. Ndofunga vezek vari kuzvinzwa kuti maybe ma-citizens anagutsikana nemibvunzo program ye last week yataitaura nevezeki tichibvunza about ma-reforms. The other message says, Hi, Nyari, ndinoda kubvunza kuti sei Honorable Jesmajumi vave kutaura nezvema-electoral reforms iye zvino nguva aisi yatopera here manje ndini gamuchirai from Hatfield. Havasi Honorable Jesmajumi chete vari kutaura nezvema-elections, zvema-electoral reforms, but ma-electoral reforms zeki yaiti iyo vachangotaura chete nezvema-electoral reforms once the proclamation yakaitwa, and the proclamation was only done I think less than a month ago, so people were needed to press for electoral reforms. But I think we agree in principle with you that electoral reforms should not be waited for at the last minute. I think even it should be a continuous process. So from the 1st of August, as we build to the next elections, we should be talking about electoral reforms. Citizens, it was very good to hear from you, and thank you for staying with us on Identities. Until we meet again, have a wonderful week ahead.